Hey, what's up, everybody? You know, yesterday or today, something was released to IGN.com that reported the first gateway or gatefold cover for any of Archie Comics comic books. This being, of course, for 225 of Sonic the Hedgehog. And within the past 24 hours or so, they have also obtained, apparently, another cover. That's right, they've obtained another cover, and this cover, believe it or not, is a variant cover. In other words, what would have been a proposed cover, kind of like they did with the Iron Dominion one a couple months ago, or last year, I should say. This is the same thing. Now, according to this sketch, and obviously it's done by Tracy Yardling, Archie Comics, the comic book of Sonic the Hedgehog 225, is teasing the death of a character. Now, many people have speculated as to who this could be. Now, when you look at the hand here, I don't think you can see that very well, but if you look at the hand, some people speculate that that's Sally's hand. Some people speculate that it's her hand. Now, Ian Flynn did say, going into the 225, that nothing is sacred anymore. So even though fans would probably throw a rage at him, a majority of the fans would throw a rage at him, it's a possibility it could be her. Now, however, according to some sources, according to XX Miko XX, who's one of the subscribers and posters on both the Cartoons Comics section and the message boards at Sega.com, as well as one of the posters and messengers at Knothole Village, Bumble King Forums, and of course at Sonic Stadium. So the question is, who could it be? Well, according to XX Miko XX, two people that obviously have seen sketches for the upcoming Genesis storyline have seen Sally there along with Sonic, Rotor, and Antron. There's no mention of Bunny, but she still will probably be in there. So they say it can't be her. Now, we can't say that the sketches they saw weren't a part of 225. They could have been. However, we're getting some characters into the story for 222 that some have now suspected as possible candidates. 222, of course, comes out next week. It's officially shipped out next week. So it'll probably be arriving around my section around probably the first week, or sort of the first week of March, which would be about March 1st, March 2nd maybe, I'm not really sure. So it's going to be shipped out next week. And two characters have appeared in this comic, who are scheduled to appear in this comic, or actually three of them are appearing, believe it or not. One, of course, is Uncle Chuck, Sir Charles, Sonic's uncle. The second one is Sally's mother, Queen Alicia. Now another one, I think he's mentioned in here somewhere, is none other than Monkey Kong. Well, at least he appears in there. Now, the first page of 222 apparently, shows the cast of characters. Okay? It shows who they are. Who's mainly going to be featured. Now, one of them, of course, is St. John. Now, St. John obviously has this look on his face like he's worried, like he's starting to regret what he has done. So, there's some clues there as to perhaps who will bite the dust. Now, some others are saying it could be Nicole. Now, some are saying it can't be Nicole since she's an artificial intelligence, an AI, and that she's a hologram. She's a hologram. You can't kill her. Well, let's not forget, despite how you look at it, in some ways. Nicole has been mentioned throughout some of the stories, throughout the Sonic comic book history, that during a fight, during a war with Eggman, she will die. She will sacrifice herself. So, it could be her. You know, but if this is done by Tracy Yardling, well, this is actually Tracy's artwork, not Spaz's. But so basically, this was like a concept. You know, that could be Sally's, but I don't think it will be according to some sources. Now, one source has said that Ian has even indicated that he would never touch a character like Sally or any of the main characters, because I don't know what it would be, but he just wouldn't do it. Not because he was a fan of the characters, but also due to the fact that I don't think he wants to get the backlash that Ken Penders got. Now, some are saying it could be St. John. Now, the reason it could be St. John, and I mentioned this at SonicStadium.com on the message boards, at the Archie Sonic comic book section, I mentioned this, I said, which is also part of the Sonic discussion section. I mentioned this, I said, and this is what I said. At the end of my little reply, I said that if it is St. John, this would be Archie Comics' way, or at least one of them, of distancing themselves from Ken Penders. Because let's not forget, Ken Penders last year started suing them for using his characters, and then they countersued him because of that. So maybe, since Jeffrey's one of his characters or creations, they're going to say, you know what? Let's take this guy out. That way, like I say, they distance themselves from Ken Penders. So, the list goes on. Many people feel as though it could be Antoine. Many people feel it could be Rotor. Many people feel it could be maybe Tails or Amy. But let's take a look at it this way. Whether you agree with it or not, Mobius Years Later is an alternate timeline. True, according to many, and even Ian himself, it's not canon. It's just an alternate timeline in which shows what possibly could happen. And what possibly could happen is Sally and Sonic could be together with kids, Antoine and Bunny could have kids, things like that. So there's no way the core Freedom Fighters would be kaput. Now, even if they were, according to some people, some fans, and they might be right, according to them, if that was to happen, if the core Freedom Fighters, or at least one of them was to die, they would end this issue, at least for the storyline, that at the end of the storyline they would be brought back in some way. Now, that could happen, it may not happen. But again, we don't know who it will be. Remember, Ian has said that has mentioned world-changing events, world-changing endings we won't believe. He's mentioned characters are going to die, bite the dust. Characters, you know, that are major or something like that. Okay. Here's a few right off the bat. One character that was sort of major when it came to the Sonic comic book, and as well as the Knuckles comic book, was Knuckles' father, Locke. He died. Ian killed him off. Ian killed him off. Now, he's also killed off some other characters that he said were sort of major, but as we saw, were not really that major. Tommy Turtle and Sir Connery. We have seen that. Now the question is, who else will he kill off? Now, it looked like back in the finale to the Iron Dominion saga that he killed off Lin-Da. But as we saw, she was brought back to life. And she is seen as a major villain character. So even if somebody gets, I don't know, killed off or probably put into a coma or suspended state or whatever, it's not going to be for the rest of the comic. I mean, as much as fans would love it to be certain characters, it's not going to happen that way. But again, who could it have been that's who could it be and could have been that's depicted in this issue? Now, we know this issue was probably made during the time that the story was being written. I could be wrong, because sometimes stories are written long before the covers are made, but then again, the covers are also made at the same time, after they get an idea. Now let's say this was drawn during the initial draft, original draft, of 225. And let's say Ian Flynn presented it to Sega and presented it to Archie. The heads up at both areas could have said, you know what, it's a great story except for one thing, you can't do that. Find another way. So that's probably what happened. I'm not saying it did, but in my honest opinion, it probably did. It's a possibility. Now, however, again, the question is, who could this be? Could it be a major character? Could it be one of the freedom fighters? It could happen. Could happen. I'll give you an example as to why I say it could happen. Recently, the Marvel Comics killed off the Human Torch in Fantastic Four, in the recent issue of Fantastic Four. Now, he's going to be replaced by Spider-Man, and they're going to be known as the Future Foundation. Now, if you were somebody that had been a fan of the Fantastic Four since they began back in the 60s, and someone would have told you that 50-something years later, or close to 50 years later, that the Human Torch, one of the main characters in the Fantastic Four, was going to be killed, no one would have believed you. But you know what? If you would have told somebody back in the 70s and early 80s, around the time that Gwen Stacy died, someone would have said, well, knowing Marvel, it possibly could happen. If someone was to tell you that 30-something years ago, you'd probably be like, yeah, maybe it could happen because you saw the death of Gwen Stacy. But again, ladies and gentlemen, just because it happened there doesn't mean it's going to happen here. I mean, a major character, who could they be talking about? Now let's not forget, the last time a major character was nearly killed off, it was Sally in Endgame. Alright? It was nearly Sally in Endgame. And let's not forget, Iron Dominion, they had multiple chances to do just that. The situation with Bunny, you know, being controlled by the Iron Queen to the point that she almost perished, is a good example of how close they could have been. Like I mentioned earlier, Lynn Da was another example. They had all these opportunities in the Iron Dominion saga, and even though it made it look like they had done it, never happened. Never happened. Now, like I said, it's a possibility that Tracy drew this up probably around the time the story was being in its rough draft phases. Like I said, I could be wrong, but that has happened. You know, people write stories and they draw them out, then they have to redraw whatever has to be rewritten. So, there you go. So this could have been, not saying it was, could have been drawn at the time that Ian Flynn was having to rewrite, or had been drawn at the time that Ian Flynn had to rewrite the whole story, or some parts of the story. So, again, I'm not saying that's true, and I'm not saying that's what happened, but it obviously would seem that way. Now, I'm not saying that this cover won't end up doing what the Iron Dominion one did, that was replaced by, I think that was what, 211, I believe, or 210, I believe 210, or some 209, it was one of them. I think it was 210. Am I right? 210? So, again, just like with the issue, I think, of 210, this could be inserted right at the front of the, right as soon as you open the book. It could be right there. It could be at the back where you see a splash page. But we don't know. We don't know. Now you see, some people, like I said, some people are hoping it could be a certain character like Sally. Because that way, according to one person, all the romance crap could end. But it won't be. Ian has, in a way, confirmed that nothing's going to happen to Bunny. Thus, in a way, he's confirmed that nothing will happen to all the other characters. A major character, ladies and gentlemen, and I mentioned this in my post at Sonic Stadium, doesn't mean it's a major character. Not, according to some, not a first-tier character. No. A major character could be somebody that shows up, has been around for a long time, does get screen time every now and then, but has been with the comic and somewhat been part of the main cast in some way or fashion. Now, characters that can go into that category are characters like Uncle Chuck, like Queen Alicia, like Jeffrey St. John, and heck, even someone like Mina, or Mina, as we call her, as I like to call her, can fall into those categories. Even someone like Nicole, I hate to say, could be ended up in that category, but the thing is, nobody really knows. And again, he puts parentheses around major character and T's of death or something like that. He puts those around. So it makes you think, okay, it's a major character, but it's not as major as we think they are. Like I said, it could be somebody that associated themselves with the Freedom Fighters, been with the comic for many years, and now they're going to die. Let's not forget, that's what happened in the Urajak saga, okay? Locke sacrificed himself, and some people looked at him as not a major character, like a first tier or second tier, but he was more like a third tier major character. You know, somebody that showed up when necessary, someone that showed up and played an important role in the lives of the characters they associated with. So, to say that it's going to be a major character of first tier proportions ain't gonna happen. Now yes, that does look like, this does look like Sally's hand, but let's not forget, it could be anybody else's hand. I mean, I'll tell you this, I said this on my post, and I'll say it again like I mentioned earlier, Ian is not gonna want to, you know, take on the backlash from the fans or from Sega themselves. Because many people may say, well, Sega doesn't care anymore. Believe me, they care. As long as those characters are under their names, they're going to care. As long as they know characters like the Freedom Fighters, like a Sally, an Antoine, a Bunny, and a Rotor, characters that, you know, they did appear in a game, cameo-wise, and were proposed for a possible game back in the 90s, don't think for a second they're not going to say something about none of them dying. No. Because they will. They will say something. I mean, the reason they haven't said anything about Locke, the reason they haven't said anything about Tommy Turtle or Sean Connery, because those characters aren't as major. And they're not that associated much in the games. Neither one of them have ever made an appearance in a game. Have they? Even if it's just a cameo? No, they haven't. So the question is, who is it? Nobody really knows. But when you take a look at the cover that was officially released for 225, then it kind of tells you it may have been somebody or might be somebody. We don't know. The list, like I say, of characters that I mentioned could be even more so. We won't know until May. And we probably won't know until this gets colored in. But then again, someone says if it gets colored in, it's going to give away who dies anyway. So, you know, we'll see what happens. But again, I just don't think they're going to go in that direction. Because think about this. Think about this. Ian's probably facing some flack right now. That's right, Ian is probably facing some flack right now as we speak. Due to the fact that at the end of the first story of the Silver Story arc in Sonic Universe, in the background you have the soulless, emotionless bodies of not just Sally, not just Snively, not just Linda, but you have the soulless bodies of Sonic, Tails, Shadow, Eggman. Do you not think for 1 second they're not going to look at that and say, that's bullshit? Okay? You don't think they're going to see that? Now, again, they probably passed the story, but they didn't know exactly what the picture was going to look like at the end. But do you think they're going to pass that without having any reassurance? Hell no. So you think they're going to do this? Hell no. With a major character? Hell no. It ain't going to happen. And if it does, it would be a shocker. It would be a shocker, but we'll just have to wait and see. Because if it does happen, someone actually posted, I think jokingly, that Sally would be like the new Jean Grey if it's her. But we don't know. But, you know, that's what I have to say about it. Tell me what you guys think. Tell me if you think it could be a major first tier character or second tier or third tier. Could it be one of the Freedom Fighters? Could it be the list that I mentioned of St. John, Alicia, Charles, Nicole, Mina, or even Khan? Who do you think it could be? You let me know. Tell me what you guys think. Because even though this is probably going to be posted within the book itself after it's released, when it's released, we're going to find out exactly what happens. Because if that page, because if that proposed cover at the time coincides with what Ian says about world-changing ending, we'll see. So, tell me what you guys think. And I'll talk to you later.